Get ready for a terrifying journey. If you're brave enough to uncover the darkest secrets of this chilling story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. What you're about to hear will mess with your mind. I remember clearly the day we moved to that old village. It was one of those small communities that seemed forgotten by time, where the old houses creaked under the weight of the years and the tall trees cast unsettling shadows at dusk. I had never been one to believe in superstitions, but there was something about that village that made me uneasy from the very first moment. Shortly after our arrival, the locals began whispering about the history of the house we had bought. They said that decades ago, a terrible tragedy had occurred there. A once happy and prosperous family was destroyed by something no one could explain. They spoke of possessions, of malevolent forces that inhabited the place. To me, it all seemed like nothing more than a legend, something to scare off newcomers like us. But the more I heard the stories, the harder it became to ignore them. The house where we now lived had been the scene of disturbing events. A young girl, they said, had been possessed by a demonic entity. Each day, her condition worsened until, on a winter's night, it all ended in blood. The village priest was called to perform an exorcism, but according to the accounts, the demon was too strong. The girl didn't survive, and the priest, scarred by the terror, left the village and never returned. The details of that story, whispered by the elders, stayed with me. Each night, as darkness enveloped our new home, I felt a presence, a kind of heavy energy, as if the very air was thick with malevolence. I started to sense that there was something we couldn't see, something that might have been waiting for us from the moment we crossed the front door. And although I tried to push these thoughts away, a part of me knew that the story of the previous family was far from just a legend, and that perhaps we were about to live our own nightmare. The first few nights in our new home were, at the very least, unsettling. The silence was too deep, almost tangible, as if something was waiting to be revealed. It was on the third night that I noticed the first signs that something was wrong. I woke up in the middle of the night with an inexplicable chill, the kind that freezes you to the bone, even under warm blankets. I got up to check the windows, thinking perhaps one had been left open, but they were all closed. That's when I heard the footsteps. They were soft, almost imperceptible, but distinct enough to make me stop and listen closely. They were coming from downstairs. With my heart pounding, I descended the stairs, each step creaking beneath my feet, and the sound of the footsteps abruptly stopped. I checked every room, but there was no one there. I tried convincing myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. The next night, my wife woke up startled, saying she heard someone whisper her name. She was pale, terrified. I insisted it was just a nightmare, but as the days went on, the strange events became more frequent. Lights flickered for no reason, doors closed on their own, and that constant feeling of being watched lingered. The tension in the house was palpable, and each of us could feel the weight of an invisible presence. I began avoiding being home alone. The fear crept into my mind, and I knew I was no longer dealing with something natural. What once seemed like just an old house with a dark past now revealed itself as a place where something evil was lurking, waiting, feeding on our fear. We were on the brink of discovering that the villagers' whispers weren't just superstitions but warnings of a real, ancient, and powerful evil. The nights that followed brought something far worse than just whispers and footsteps. We were all in the living room when the lights started flickering again, but this time they went out completely. The silence was thick, laden with a presence that could almost be felt in the air. Then we heard a sound we would never forget, a low, deep, guttural growl coming from upstairs. My wife grabbed my hand, her eyes wide with fear. The kids, usually so noisy, were utterly silent, frozen by terror. The sound began to move closer, descending the stairs slowly, as if something was circling us, studying us. I knew it wasn't an animal. It was something far worse. I mustered the courage to climb the stairs, each step feeling like I was walking toward my doom. When I reached the top, the hallway was dark, but I could feel I wasn't alone. The growling had stopped, replaced by heavy breathing, almost as if it was waiting for me to make the next move. My hand trembled as I tried to flip the hallway light on, but the switch was dead. It was then that I saw, in the dim light, a figure at the far end of the hall. It wasn't human. Its proportions were wrong, distorted, and its eyes glowed with a malevolence that seemed to pierce my soul. I could barely move, paralyzed by the sheer terror emanating from this creature. It began to slowly advance, and I finally managed to scream. The scream brought my wife running, but by the time she arrived, the figure was gone. The house seemed to return to normal, but we knew nothing was normal. That thing was hunting us, and we were trapped in its domain. Time passed, and the tension in the house only grew worse. We knew we couldn't keep ignoring what was happening. The thing haunting us was real, and we were in danger. My wife suggested we call a priest to bless the house, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. We needed to understand what we were up against. So, I decided to search the village's historical archives, hoping to find anything that could explain what was happening. The local librarian seemed hesitant to help, but eventually handed me an old, dust-covered journal that had been found in the house years ago. As I opened the yellowed pages, a chill ran down my spine. The journal belonged to a man who had lived in the house at the beginning of the last century. His entries spoke of an ancient curse, a ritual gone wrong that had unleashed a demon on the property. The man described how his family was destroyed, one, by the creature, until he was the last to be taken. It was clear that we were facing the same malevolent force. With the journal in hand, I returned home determined to fight. I showed the entries to my wife, and together, we decided that we couldn't keep running. We had to face the evil head-on. Using the information from the journal, we began preparing the house for the final battle. We drew protective symbols on the walls and scattered salt in every corner of the house. As night fell, the atmosphere grew heavy, as if the house were alive, waiting for the confrontation. I took the journal and began reciting the incantations the former resident had written, but the presence in the house only seemed to grow stronger, angrier. We knew this wouldn't be easy, but we were ready to fight for our lives. The night became a living nightmare. We had just finished preparing the house when the air around us turned icy, as if the darkness itself was trying to consume us. The sound of footsteps echoed throughout the house, but these were not human footsteps. They were heavy, almost as if something monstrous was walking among us. I knew the moment had arrived. With a journal in one hand and a crucifix in the other, I began reciting the final incantations, but it quickly became clear that the malevolent force would not be easily banished. My voice trembled, but I pressed on, determined to protect my family at any cost. Then, the creature fully manifested. It was a vision of pure horror, a distorted figure, cloaked in shadows, with eyes burning with hatred. Every step it took made the house tremble, as if the very structure was about to collapse. My wife screamed, and the children huddled in the corner of the room, terrified. The creature advanced, ignoring the protective symbols and the salt we had scattered. I knew there was no other choice. Somehow, the journal hinted that only a personal sacrifice could defeat the creature. I looked at my family and knew what I had to do. Clutching the crucifix tighter, I approached the creature, reciting the incantations with all the strength I had left. The thing hesitated, as if it sensed my resolve. In a final act of desperation, I charged at the creature, shouting the ritual's final words. The darkness around us seemed to explode into blinding light, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then, I felt a sharp pain and realized I was falling, enveloped in shadows. When I opened my eyes, the creature was gone. My wife ran to me, but I knew something inside me had changed forever. The house was silent, but the peace we felt was only surface deep. We had survived, but at a cost we could never forget. The evil had been banished, but I knew it would never fully leave our lives. The sacrifice had been made, and the price had been paid. You've survived this dark tale, but the terror doesn't end here. Leave a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night. Until next time, if you dare to return.